Okay, good morning. I think that we can start our event. This is the second event of the project A4EUS. I want to really thank you all the participants and host organization of this virtual event. How you can say in my background, this should be an event organized physically in the beautiful Malta. Unfortunately, in force of the COVID pandemic, we must we organize this event virtually, but I hope that we'll be able to bring to you the add value and important contents that we'll carry out from the discussion from the expert invited from Malta. So before to introduce the first speaker of our event, I want just give you a technical information for the speakers. All the speakers now are unmuted. When they will be introduced by me or by Giulia, I assign them the privilege of speakers, and then after that, they will be able to speak and to share their presentation. There is a button in the bottom of the screen, share content. This button will be enabled after that I assign you the role of speaker. So don't worry if for the moment you are not able to do that. I give you, suddenly give the floor to the host organization of this event, that I want to really thank all the staff for the great job that they have done to collect, to invite so distinguished speakers. I give the floor to Giulia Xuareb. I assign her the role of presenter. And thank you again to be here, and thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, it's lovely to virtually meet you all. Welcome to all our partners and participants. First of all, I would like to thank you for joining us today in today's conference, A Matter of Human Rights, Malta's Experience of Migration. I am Giulia Xuareb. I am the Communications Officer at the FTZ Community Foundation. Before we start, I would just like to direct your attention to two small changes to the agenda for today. So, first of all, we shall be switching around the presentations of Sarah and Theo for practical reasons. And secondly, we have had to limit the virtual meeting to 2 hours, and on the program it says 2.5. And so instead of the presentation from Aditus Foundation, I shall be giving some further information in this introduction and some statistics, and then we will have a discussion in the end. So we'll have some time for questions and a discussion. I also wanted to say that we have tried to include representatives of the community because there are some participants here today. Unfortunately, they couldn't give a presentation, but they might be joining our discussion. As an example of some of the difficulties the migrants face, I received an email saying that most of the Syrian community members are working hard to feed their families, and a lot of the members have different problems such as the language barrier or morning work in plastering because of the time of the conference they had work, and some of them never heard of Zoom or any other online platforms before now, and how to join. So that is an example of those are some examples of the problems that migrants face. Before we start, I would like to say welcome to the project partners involved in the A4EUS, that is the Action for European Solidarity. The project coordinator, who you've met, Daniela Gizzi, will describe the project further. And we have 16 partners We have partners from Spain, Italy, Greece, Serbia, Montenegro, the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia, Bulgaria, Germany, Hungary, Albania, Belgium, and the FTZ Community Foundation from Malta. Now, a little bit about the FTZ Community Foundation. It was set up as an NGO when the legislation on voluntary organizations was introduced just over 10 years ago to take over the work of the Fondazione Temmisa. This public equivalent foundation had been established in 2004 at the time of Malta's accession into the EU to promote sustainable community development. It was based at the University of Malta up to 2012 and had a pioneering role in promoting participation in European programs. FTZ had, in fact, implemented scores of projects and supported numerous local organizations to join transnational initiatives. Some of these projects concerned the integration of migrants. FTZ served as the head of the Maltese network of the Anna Lindh Foundation. Today, the NGO focuses mainly on the cultural sector, and it has a collaboration agreement with the Arts Council and the Valletta Cultural Agency. It manages the Splendid, Cultural Incubator and Creative Cluster in Street Valletta to assist young and upcoming artists. And the FTZ Foundation, as the FTZ Foundation, we have taken over this project from the local council of Hazebut, and we chose to focus this conference on the perspective of human rights. In fact, today is actually Human Rights Day, and Human Rights Day is celebrated across the world on the 10th of December every year. The date was chosen to honor the UN National Assembly's adoption of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in December 1948, and this was the first global enunciation of human rights and one of the first major achievements of the new United Nations. Now, the topic of migration is quite a hot topic in Malta. Some statistics regarding this. So in 2019, there were 3,406 arrivals as of December. And in 2020, there was a 31% decrease in sea arrivals when compared to last year, and 2,281 persons were rescued. The perception of a large number of people is that in Malta is that Malta does not have enough space for the large number of asylum seekers that enter Malta. And to what level should the government satisfy to the public position that Malta is full up? And how far is it the duty of the government to try and raise the awareness of the voting public on Malta's obligations towards the rights of asylum seekers, and also to Malta's moral obligations and requirements on a humanitarian level, understanding what asylum seekers have to face even just across to Malta. And even the terms and vocabulary used very often when describing the migration situation in Malta, it's often described as with using words like a problem or a burden. This conference is being organized to discuss integration from a human rights perspective. And the speakers who we have here today will discuss this issue in more detail and provide us with a clearer picture and understanding of the situation. We have Sarah Ann Farrugia and Theodore Relchich from the United Nations High Commission for Refugees, who will be speaking today. We have Eleonora Cavina, who is the project manager of Crossing Borders, the DICA Association. And we have Ahmed Mam, I hope I pronounced your surname correctly, who is the integration officer with the Intercultural and Anti-Racism Unit within the Human Rights Directorate. Now, before Daniela Gizzi from the Focus Europe Association introduces the project further, I would like to say that, as actually Daniela already said, this is the second event in the Action for European Solidarity project. And now I will give the floor to Daniele Gizzi and allow him to introduce the A4EUS project further. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Giulia, for your so accurate introduction and also to describe very well the list of distinguished speakers that we have today. Now, just a brief introduction about the project, A4EUS project. Just give me a second to share the screen. Okay, now I think you can see my screen. Please, Cesare, give me a feedback if you can see my screen.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So what is the A4EUS project? Is the acronym for Action for a Europe of Solidarity. This project originally thought to be organized through physical events in 7 countries. In force of the COVID pandemic, we remodulate the project activity virtually. At the beginning of the project, we should organize 7 physical events. Now, after the amendment, we hope to be able to organize 15 virtual events. What is the aim of the project? How you can imagine from the title, Europe Solidarity, the aim of the project, the overall objective of the project is to try to disseminate, to try to sensibilize the European citizens about one of the worst tragedy that the European Union is facing now. That is the one of the, apart of course the COVID pandemic, about the immigrants. The immigrants that start from Africa, from the Middle East to reach the Europe, and too often fail and die in their trip. Then we try also to according with the characteristics of each territories in which the events are organized, even if virtually, I repeat, we try to create another point of view. We try to open a debate on what the immigration and what the immigrants are. Unfortunately, across Europe, the xenophobia and the fear of the immigrants is massive scale. And we try to say there is another point of view that we can focus on. There is another point of view that on which we should debate to better understand the tragedy, the stories, the drama of these people. This is not a project that in favor or against something. This is just a project in which we try to open in a public event like this one, open a space where citizens, where representative of association, of NGO can tell something different about the immigrants, about the tragedy, in some case of the immigrants' travel. In this sense, you can say from the screen that I'm sharing now, the events are very different each other. For one, in the first evening in Mazara del Vallo, we talked about the good practice of integration of the Arab immigrants in Mazara del Vallo, the most Arab cities in Europe, it's called, because there are more than 20,000 Tunisians that live in Mazara del Vallo that are well integrated, that work together with the Italian one, or that they are Italian one themselves. In case of Malta, we stress instead of the fact of the refugees, because Malta is the, we can say is the south gate of Europe, is a small island in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea, that is the first country, together with Italy and Greece, that face the tragedy of the people that escape from the wars, that escapes from Africa, and try to reach Europe. So in the other event, now I have the list of the event, we have the list of the event in the website, but it's not, we have to update, because I already said originally there were expected 7 events. Now we want to organize, even because it's easier organize, is faster, not easier, organize an event virtually. We hope to organize 15 events, one for each nationality represented by the A4EU's partners. So I just give you an overview of the event. This is our event of Malta. Then we have another event in Serbia, in North Macedonia, Belgium, Kosovo and Albania, Caltagirone. But we'll have also event in Poland, in Estonia, Greece, I don't remember, Spain. So I don't remember exactly all the other events that we are scheduled, but this is to, how can I say, to exploit, to try to engage all the different situations of the territories. This is the list of the partner organization involved. Focus Europe is the no-profit organization that I represent now, is a no-profit organization. We represent many local authorities in Italy, but also in Europe. We have about more than 100 cities as associated. Then we have, this is the partners. Some of them are changed, but I'm sorry if the list is not accurate, but in force of the pandemic, we should remodulate and amend the project several times. Now we are the fixed structure, and after this event will be updated, but some of the partners still in the project consortium, like COPEM, Roma Youth Center from the Republic of Macedonia, Urban Municipality of Tunisia for Montenegro, Ayuntamiento de Cuenca from Spain was substituted by another municipalities from Spain. International Platform for Citizen Participation, Bulgaria is still in the consortium, and I'm happy to have them on board. Municipality of Mazara del Vallo, that hosted the first event. Malta, I already said from my colleague Giulia, was substituted, the Council of Hazebuju was substituted with the foundation. Kulturpolis Greece is still on board, like for the Serbian one, sorry for the pronunciation, Lokalne Demokracije. European University College Association Belgium is in the project, and there will be organized an event even in Belgium. I forgot before to tell you. Instead, the Germany municipality was replaced from an association from Poland, and the Hungarian one was substituted by an organization from Estonia. Then we have the friends from Albania, Italy, and two local authorities like Comune di Osilo and Unione dei Comuni di Gerre from Sardinia that are still in the project. This list must be updated, I already told you, but more or less is the general structure that we have in our project. We have also, this is the official website of the event, where you can find updated information, list of partners and events. What we do during this project? Only event? No. We organize event, and then we try to organize also interim activities, if I can say that. So we can try to engage also citizens even when there are no events scheduled, like the survey. We prepare a survey to understand, to collect the perception of the citizens about the immigrants and about the immigration. We prepared 10, 11 questions. We translated the survey in all the language represented from the project partners, and we disseminated across Europe. We are very happy. This is the first interim activity that we organized. We are very happy because at the moment we have about 900 responses, so from all the countries involved, from Italy, Greece, Albania, Spain, Poland, Serbia, Macedonia, etc. So we have was a very successful activity for the moment, and the survey is still open. So maybe later we can share the link. We use the online platform of Slido. So maybe, of course, there is a questionnaire also translated in English. Maybe we can share with you for further dissemination. We also have a strong communication tool, and Cesare Festa conduct the communication campaign through Facebook and through Instagram. So you can follow us even on those channels, and these are the contacts. This is the general presentation of the project. I would like also remember that if you want to interact with us, with the speakers during the event, you can just use the chat. The chat on WebEx, just asking for information. And if you want, we can also give you the floor for questions, for intervene directly in the debate. Well, I think that we are perfect in line with the timetable. I would like now give the floor to the first speaker that we have, Theodor Relic. I hope that I well pronounced.
Okay, sorry to interrupt you. The presentations have been switched. There's Sarah Farrugia first.
Farrugia, sorry. Okay.
But the pronunciation of the name was perfect, which rarely happens. So well done. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I'm happy. Okay, so I give the floor to Farrugia. I give her the privilege of presenter. Just give me a second.
Can I just say a few words about...
Of course, sorry. Okay, sorry.
Sarah Farrugia has worked in the Durable Solutions Unit of the UNHCR country office in Malta since 2018. For the past few years, she has focused on promoting the local integration of beneficiaries of international protection and asylum seekers in Malta. And her work includes coordinating outreach activities, providing guidance to persons of concern, to UNHCR, integration-related services, supporting refugee-led community organizations to build up their capacity, and building networks with service providers and stakeholders to facilitate refugees' integration. And now I give the floor to Sarah Farrugia.
Hi, good morning. Can you see the screen?
Hello? Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Yes.
Yes, I can see the screen.
Okay, because I'm actually not seeing myself or the screen, so it's difficult to say. Okay, good morning. I'm Sarah Farrugia. I work in the UNHCR Malta office, and today I'll be explaining in brief our work with refugee communities.
Sorry, Sarah, sorry if I interrupt you. There is something on the screen. I don't know if I'm the only one that I see it. Okay, now it's perfect. Now we can see it. Yeah, it's okay. Try to enlarge maybe the screen with F5 probably, so we can. Great, outstanding.
Is it okay?
Outstanding, thank you.
1 second. Okay. Okay, so just to start off, I have some basic information about the Malta office. So as an office, we're divided into 3 units, consisting of the protection unit, durable solutions, and public information. So protection focused mostly on information provision on the asylum procedure, access to rights, visits in open center, advocacy, and capacity building. The durable solutions unit, meaning long-term solutions for refugees and asylum seekers in Malta, is the unit I come from, focuses on integration and public information, which is the unit Theo belongs to, and he'll be explaining in further detail their work, works on public perception, statistics, media monitoring, etc. So we are a very small team in Malta. We often work as a multifunctional team to ensure access to protection and facilitate integration in the host community. So in our work, we often act as a bridge between the refugee and local community. So especially my unit, where we focus mostly on integration, we often introduce the local stakeholders to the refugee communities. So we focus on monitoring access to protection, conditions of asylum and detention recently. Advocacy is one of our most important areas for a better protection environment for refugees and asylum seekers. So we strengthen the capacities of government and partner agencies and we do this through bilateral meetings, advocacy, training sessions, information provision. We give advice, make recommendations. We improve the availability of durable solutions through local integration. So again, we work a number of stakeholders on different areas such as employment, education, health, social services. We work with refugee communities, NGOs, government entities, also local councils. And we try to increase general awareness about asylum issues in the country. And again, Theo will be explaining this in further detail. So since we're discussing working with refugee communities, I'll start off by introducing the refugee communities in Malta to you. Since resettlement has stopped a number of years ago, there was a resettlement program from Malta to the US, refugee communities have started to look at Malta more as a long-term plan for them. And this has led to a number of refugee communities to organize themselves. So there are a number of refugee communities in Malta with a VO number. Some obviously are more active than others, but again, they're growing and the representation is becoming more structured. So we work very much with refugee communities, but I must also point out that they are a very useful tool for us as well. So the same way how we provide them with information to then communicate with their respective communities, we often consult with them and look for them for feedback. Especially this year, since we couldn't conduct any physical activities, we relied very much on the feedback the leaders of the refugee communities gave us. So we were always in contact with them by messages, phone calls to see if there are any new issues which arose in the refugee communities. So there are Sudanese communities, Somali, Eritrean, Syrian. Libica is an organization of Libyan women in Malta. Migrant Women Association has Spark 15, which is a youth-led refugee NGO. So as an office, we try to support these community organizations, and we do it in a number of ways. So the most basic is we provide them material support. So the most basic and not most important in a way. However, some of the refugee communities have their own office space, and if needs be, we often provide them with material equipment such as laptops, desks, projectors, for example, which they can use to have meetings with their communities. Another aspect of this support is also capacity building. So for the last few years, we have been conducting training sessions, on a number of aspects such as governance or fundraising. And the last 2 years, this coaching, this training has developed into more of a one-to-one mentoring. So if a refugee community tells us, like you said, we want to learn more about how to use social media, for example, we would provide them with a specific training, coaching, so that they can use that training for the management of their organization. So as an office, we always opt for a participatory approach. And this means that in whatever we do, we always involve the refugee communities, get their input and feedback on our activities, on our points of advocacy, any initiatives we want to work on. So what we used to do as of last year, because COVID has obviously changed things, we communicate with the leaders of the refugee communities and hold focus groups. This can be on anything, for example, an idea we have about World Refugee Day, or else to discuss advocacy points on subsidiary protection or family reunification. We always get their feedback from the beginning to the end of a project. And it is something we advocate with other stakeholders to do as well, to make sure that their voice is being reflected in discussions. So the refugee consultation groups have also been extended to introducing the leaders of the refugee communities with important stakeholders. And this has been done in a number of areas. So one of my priorities is employment. So in Malta, they've been introduced with Jobs Plus, unions, DIR, for example. And the scope is for the local stakeholder to get to know who the refugee communities are and what their issues are, so that they can in turn facilitate their service to meet their needs, and also for the leaders of refugee communities to be introduced to that person. So if any issues arise, or if they need some specific information, they can contact the stakeholder directly. The scope is also to obviously then pass on the information to their respective communities. So we always conduct outreach, which is a very useful tool. Outreach can be done we do the outreach a number of ways, either in open centers where we conduct our own outreach, and this includes information on design and procedure or informational integration, but we also do outreach in the local community. And since as UNHCR we do not have any direct services to offer, in the sense that we do not have lawyers or social workers with us, for example, but we provide these services through our implementing partners, we always team up with a guest, with a stakeholder. So, for example, we will conduct an outreach session in Cameroon, for example, for the mayor of Cameroon to present services or to explain what the role of the local council is. Or we can get we invite a stakeholder to provide information on English and Maltese classes, and it is delivered to the community at large. Again, we often do this with use of cultural mediators, so we make sure that this information is being received by as many people as possible. So we also work in Gozo, which is the sister island of Malta. So Gozo, for whoever isn't familiar with it, is a smaller, much quieter version of Malta. And unfortunately, Gozo being what it is, there aren't many service providers there. However, in the last few years, we realized that a number of POCs have migrated to Gozo for work, and also because rent is cheaper. Therefore, since there weren't NGOs or service providers working with refugees, what we did was we identified what we call them refugee focal points. Large percentage of the refugee community in Gozo is actually Somali. So through a process, we managed to identify 5 focal points, and we trained them. So we introduced them to all the stakeholders in Gozo on employment, health, social services, so that they can be focal points for their own communities. They can be the people to deliver and pass on information to their communities. At the same time, they also act as a bridge between the refugee community in Gozo and us. So we have usually bi-monthly meetings with the refugee focal points. So the Integration Priority Track is a program we implement through our partners, GRS. It basically consists of a fund which offers individual support for refugees who are very close to being integrated. So this can cover a number of things, be it education. For example, they might need to access a course at MCAS to obtain a specific license, which will then enable them to work as an electrician, for example. Or else they need to do their IELTS course, and we provide support by covering the expense of these items. So other activities we do are, or we used to do, and now I will actually explain how our work has adapted because of COVID, are home visits and individual counseling. We also do one-to-one meetings and registration. So registration in the past was for the scope of resettlement. Since that has stopped, registration is now still being done for them to get to know of integration-related activities. We also organize the Integration Roundtable. This is held once every 3 months, and it is basically a meeting with all the NGOs working on migration and the refugee communities. At every roundtable, we again invite speakers to provide information to the people who are attending. So information can be varied. It can be, for example, on pension rights, if there is any new information about banking, but also other stakeholders such as Teatro Salesian, social activities people who can provide more social activities are invited. We also organize events for World Refugee Day. Again, this year we could not organize a physical event because of COVID-19, but we managed to create, to have an online presence to commemorate the day. And then we also support integration activities. And this is usually done when a local stakeholder would like to organize something for refugees in the locality. And again, we try to act as a bridge, either by introducing them to refugee communities, by translating information, or if they need some support to actually implement the activity, when possible, we try our best to assist. So this year has changed things for us, obviously, as it did for other people. We had to adapt very, very fast, and it was a bit of a learning curve, both for us and also for the refugee communities. Our priority was making sure that refugee communities in Malta were receiving the information which was coming out from the government and receiving it efficiently. So what we did along with other NGOs, so it was not just us working on this aspect, was translating all the government notices in a fast way, and also providing platforms where refugees can access this information. So again, as UNHCR, we do not know exactly how many refugees live in Malta. We don't possess that information, and we cannot communicate with every refugee in Malta. So it is basically, we are basically count on the refugee communities to then share the information. What we did was we created a Facebook group, as we thought that social media would have been a convenient way how to access this information. We then realized that POCs use WhatsApp more. So we also created a WhatsApp group, and this WhatsApp group was made available for people living in the community and also in open centers. And all the information was translated into Arabic, Somali, Tigrinya, Bangla, and French, which are the main languages of POCs residing in Malta. We still managed to conduct monitoring. Obviously, again, this could not be done through physical presence, but through calls. So we also organized a UNHCR helpline. So on the right-hand side of the screen, you can see a schedule. And this is a helpline where POCs can call, and there would also be an interpreter available on those specific days. So in terms of outreach, we also had to adapt. So it is still important for POCs to get information about employment or education. So what we are doing, and we'll be launching hopefully in the next few weeks, are a series of videos where we invite stakeholders to record themselves along with an interpreter and provide information on that specific service. So since, due to COVID, employment has been one of the areas which has been mostly affected, we're starting off by focusing on employment, so working with the employment stakeholders in Malta, but this will also be extended to childcare services, for example. We'll be working with the GU clinic and also education. So in a nutshell, that is our work with refugee communities. There's obviously a lot more to say. However, for a 20-minute presentation, I just want to give you an idea of what we do as an office in Malta. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Oh, I don't think my video is switched on. Thank you very much, Sarah. And now I will, Theodore Relčić will be the next speaker. He recently joined the Public Information Unit of the UNHCR, the country office in Malta, serving as communications associate in a two-person team since September 2020. His previous experience includes serving as cultural editor, proofreader, and feature writer for the national newspaper Malta Today. And from 2016 to late 2020, he worked as a freelance writer in both a corporate and creative capacity. He now assists the PI unit in all of its efforts, including the monitoring of media trends and political rhetoric on refugees and asylum seekers, and helping bring refugee stories to the public at large. I would now like to give the floor to Theodore Relčić and say thank you to Sarah for her presentation.
All right, thank you for that, Julia. I'm just going to start by sharing a presentation. Okay, I don't know if you can see it.
I thought, yes, I can see it. Perfect.
All right, okay. So Sarah already gave an overview about, of course, her unit, which is the Durable Solutions unit. And of course, as you can imagine, we work together very closely, sometimes in a more sort of reactive way as the Public Information Unit in terms of promoting and getting out there certain initiatives that the Durable Solutions Unit starts up, but sometimes also liaising with them more directly when it comes to bringing refugee stories out there. So I'm not going to really go through all the steps of PI, the Public Information Unit, because I think we can start actually by me going through this recent public perception survey that UNHCR Malta commissioned through the independent survey company Esprimi, which was done in December 2019 through focus groups. And I would like to start with this because it will give everyone a good snapshot of some public perception issues related to refugees and asylum seekers. Of course, I'll be summarizing a lot, but this will then, I think, illustrate much more clearly how we operate as a PI unit in terms of the realities we're reacting to, and how we source the information that we need to make sure that, number one, we reflect the reality on the ground in a way that makes sense in terms of the national realities of refugee and asylum seeker issues, and also how best to calibrate the content that we create, even in terms of how we can bring refugee stories to the fore. So this is just a general overview of the group of the profile of the respondents of this particular focus group based survey. So you can see they were both under and over 40, made up in 3 distinct groups, which have subgroups within them. So like Maltese residents, there were also non-Maltese and non-refugee residents. So like foreigners who live here, expats, let's say, and a group of refugees and asylum seekers. This gives you a more detailed then breakdown of the groups. So if you want to take a look quickly before we go on. So I'll now jump straight to some of the findings, because I think this can be particularly interesting. So what emerged very strongly from the survey was that there was a clear generational gap among respondents in terms of refugee and asylum seeker issues and concerns, with older participants expressing skepticism towards refugees and asylum seekers, or increased skepticism when compared to the younger counterparts. So as you can see, this is taken directly from the survey, from the analysis that we received after the focus groups were organized. So it's worth noting that respondents in older age groups used less positive descriptors than the respondents in other groups. Some words or phrases mentioned in this group were opportunists and cultural misfits, or that Malta is not their target destination. And that the older respondents seem to have a greater concern about what the long-term effects of refugees in Malta may be when becoming part of the Maltese community, particularly because it is perceived that the cultures are divergent in nature. And this maybe, this is of course the survey was organized, the focus groups were held before COVID, but this feels particularly prescient. Some also have concerns relating to diseases from third world countries that have been wiped out in more developed countries. So again, insights like these help us when we are planning our campaigns, our even individual stories on refugees and asylum seekers that want to get out there. Keeping this kind of information in mind helps us. Okay, so thinking in terms of how can we go against perhaps these stereotypes? How can we present a more nuanced and representative view? The survey also found that integration actually was viewed as the most proactive solution for current tensions vis-a-vis refugees and local communities. Perhaps this is not surprising. Many of them viewed it as the best possible way they could think to alleviate some of the anxieties and problems brought about by having refugees, asylum seekers, and other migrants in their communities. But we also need to mention that respondents, the refugee respondents, spoke about the challenges of integration in terms of, particularly because at the end of the day, it is up to the asylum seekers to do the, let's call it, hard work of integration, of having to often simply justify their very presence in the country, and this puts them in a kind of disadvantaged position. And again, while we obviously choose to focus on positive stories a lot of the time, we also need to acknowledge the hardships that refugees and asylum seekers go through when trying to integrate, but also on a more fundamental level. So one of the key obstacles to integration, as found from this particular survey, is the idea of, we can call it cultural misalignment. So the perception that there is something inherently in the refugee communities, there's something inherently problematic, or that will stop them from being able to integrate just from the start, and there not being any way to kind of overcome that. So again, the generation gap comes through here. So you have, they are coming from a particular cultural environment that might create friction with our own, and that some people do not accept cultural differences that refugees might struggle with. Unfortunately, a lot of people, this is the mixed group of participants, saying that unfortunately a lot of people see them as nobodies, or else they don't spend that time to actually recognize that they are human beings with a past or with an education. Again, the issue of dehumanization really comes through here. The refusal of many people to not see them as fully fledged people, simply as other, and as a generalized population that is coming from outside, and that doesn't have the kind of full range of realities to deal with. Which again, this is something that we try to break down through our stories when it comes to spotlighting certain particular refugees, particular refugee populations, and also individuals. Another, again, perhaps unsurprisingly, another element that comes through very strongly in the survey is the idea of refugees as an economic burden on the country, as being an additional population that is coming from outside and disrupting the internal processes of a country's economic development and distribution of goods and employment, etc. Because I'm sure a lot of you are common with this are familiar with this argument. The over 40s, again, there is a slightly more subtle, perhaps, difference in generational responses, but it's there. So the over 40s, for example, would refer to non-legal employment, so we can call it off the books employment, works to the benefit of both parties, refugees and Maltese contractors, because refugees are ready to work low-income jobs, and Maltese contractors are ready to employ them illegally over the cost. Whereas in the under 40s, perhaps, in their perspective, refugees get employed in low-income jobs that Maltese residents do not want to work, which more often than not is manual work. Thus, this type of work is easy to be done illegally. The generation gap here comes through, perhaps in terms of the under 40s being perhaps more open to seeing the fuller picture, the contextual picture that refugees and asylum seekers have to work with, as opposed to being a sort of more universalized problem that is presented by migration and by refugee communities. So to continue on this, and then respondents were asked to comment on the economic burden argument and what kind of solutions that they would perhaps present. So one of the things is that respondents believed that refugees should be able to financially contribute by paying taxes. Under 40s then said that one way refugees one positive mechanism that could be implemented was for refugees to be encouraged to do voluntary work. And I should say that this was suggested in response to a particular concern that was raised during the focus groups, and that specifically referred to the perception that refugee women receive more help in terms of childcare and maternity and so on. So the sort of optics of unfairness coming into play there, that refugee mothers get a sort of preferential treatment. And they believe that, yes, then these people could do voluntary work to kind of make up for this perceived preferential treatment. One respondent, interestingly, suggesting that they might have to set up some sort of systems in which refugees can volunteer, also monitoring and aiding refugees who haven't yet settled in Malta, as a sort of go-between between kind of existing refugees and new ones that come in. Now, of course, refugees being put in the position of doing voluntary work might not be that realistic in terms of their own direct economic realities and immediate needs and concerns. So there needs to be some sort of perspective that we need to put in there. But it's still interesting that this is the suggestion that was raised, because it points to the idea that if refugees are seen to be more active within the community, that this would help in how the community perceives them, would perhaps be more friendly towards them in the community. And then we also, of course, got the refugee perspective on a lot of these matters. The refugee group was interviewed in a separate session in the focus groups. One issue that they raised is that if this is quoting directly from one of the participants, if they don't give you the opportunity to communicate with them, it is very difficult to integrate. I'm ready to integrate with Maltese people, but are they? Another observation, the second quote on the slide, is also very interesting. It says that Maltese people were very kind to us when we arrived. The initial reaction was good. When you start requiring basic needs, it is no longer good. So again, this goes back to the idea of dehumanization. So seeing what's, I think the underlying, the between the lines suggestion of this particular observation is that a lot of people are okay with seeing refugees and asylum seekers as a temporary charity case, but when they start inquiring into, housing and basic needs, and start being viewed as fully fledged people, then it becomes a bit of a problem. Another issue that was brought up by all participants, including the refugee population, is that the media in particular is skewed very negatively towards refugees. The over 40s segment, for example, said that the racist mentality that one finds within the Maltese population is neither shocking nor surprising, especially if you take a look at the media, which is broadcasting criminal activities by foreigners against Maltese people. There is too much illegal activity going on, so it is natural for the majority to feel not accepting towards them. So the over 40s believe that there is illegal activity, whereas then the under 40s believe that, and the group of foreigners, the expats, the non-refugee foreigners who live in Malta, believe that while there may be some illegal activity, the illegal activity committed by the refugee, asylum-seeking, and migrant population is disproportionately represented. So this is a key concern. From a refugee standpoint, again, the idea of disproportionate representation comes through as well. So they do not want to show anything good about us. We are not being given the chance to show our culture. And perhaps an even more pessimistic and resigned view comes through in the last quote in the slide, which says that it is better to be quiet and hide our culture, even if we show ourselves and our talents. I still think nothing would change. So again, there are some refugees who believe that everything is stacked against them in terms of, especially media representation, that fighting back is a lost cause already. So this again gives you a quick snapshot of the kind of scenario that we are dealing with in terms of perception, and what we keep in mind as UNHCR when we, as particularly as the PI unit, when we set about crafting our own stories, partly also in response to a lot of this. We feature we use various platforms and do outreach with various media houses and through various communities, but we also have our own, let's call it, central hub for our stories, which is of course our main website. This is just a snapshot from the main page, which is a recent story that we featured, which was actually done by me, based on an interview with a Libyan gynecologist called Badria Gawi, who arrived to Malta in 2015, and whose story was interesting, particularly also because perhaps she wasn't in some ways typical participant or respondent, or perhaps she wasn't what one would expect when hearing the refugee stories. This story was someone who had a very distinguished career back home and who was forced to move to Malta due to the war. So, and somebody who was very articulate and very self-aware about their journey. And our interview took the shape of, in the end, there was a kind of universality to her feeling like she is past her prime in a way, and a lot of issues in terms of how the elderly population deals with that stage in life. So there was a kind of universality there, which I felt was important to point out. We also want to show a diversity of refugee stories and to move beyond the kind of cliche idea of what refugees go through. Again, we also want to show this story in particular is an integration story in a way, because we spoke to a Somali asylum seeker who works at a local company, and we also spoke to his manager, his superior, his boss, to speak about integration and to speak about the challenges and also how to overcome certain perceived challenges of employing refugees and so on. And this particular story of a dog trainer from Syria who moved to Malta was a clear example of how pointing out certain universal aspects and certain things that all people feel affectionate towards. Everyone loves their pets. So showing a refugee who works in this field endears a lot of people to them and their journey. And in fact, this story, a video version of this story, attracted the interest of the international UNHCR online space. So it was also featured there. So in terms of then the ethics and how we source our stories, Sarah went into some detail about the refugee communities that we deal with and who are our partners. So having a good network among them gives us a good starting point in terms of finding willing participants who give very clear and open consent to feature in our stories. Sometimes we use these partner organizations also to provide interpretation services to make sure that we are completely in the clear when it comes to them understanding what being featured at UNHCR entails. We make sure to really prepare the participants after as well, and make sure that they have no doubts or worries about feeling exposed and so on. So, for example, the story of Badria, the Libyan gynecologist, even we conducted the interview in Italian because I speak Italian and her Italian is fluent because she studied in Italy and worked there. But even then, there was a back and forth. I, of course, sent her the draft of the article to make sure that, and she did suggest some changes because there were some parts of it that she was uncomfortable with, and we of course implemented the changes and sent her the final version. So this is something that is of course very important to us, to treat the stories of the participants with the full respect that they need and that they of course deserve and are entitled to. But again, it's also important to us, as I mentioned earlier, not to focus on the tragedy and hardship, but to also focus on the kind of new life of the refugees and rebuilding their life in Malta in this particular case, which is where the integration angle comes in very strongly. So of course the initial advocacy that we have to do, and this is where our colleagues in both protection and durable solutions come in, is for them to ensure that they have their rights for asylum and so on. But then, of course, it's important for them to become active members of society, and this is something we hope to highlight through their stories. We are, of course, also open to feature stories by refugees who choose to remain anonymous. This is something that is of course an option. We of course then recalibrate and contextualize the particular piece to make sure that still works within that context. But of course, we always leave it open to them. We understand how difficult it is for participants to speak about their story. We are always very careful, and even internally we have a good feedback loop in terms of the PI unit itself, but also among durable solutions. We share the early drafts of the story. We even share perhaps the interview questions beforehand, if that's relevant. See that we create a very representative picture of the person that truly represents them, not that you come in with certain preconceptions that you want to bring about. But also, of course, bearing in mind that people, the audience will latch onto something that they find that they can relate to. And again, the dog trainer is a clear example of this. On a technical level, on a very kind of even paragraph and sentence level in terms of the stories, when it comes to written stories, we even make sure to use the direct voice as much as possible of the refugee, of the speaker, because we feel it's important to not to gatekeep too much, to show them speaking directly and in their own voice, and even sometimes have articles penned directly by refugees. We have a couple of magazines that we published recently. One of them was featured in one of Sarah's slides, the Moving Forward magazine, because it's important for us to show that refugees should advocate for their own issues, and so for us to remove any sort of paternalism and any kind of patronizing attitude we may have towards this. Again, speaking of pre-COVID and speaking of sort of illustrating very clearly how through our advocacy and our events we choose to bring together refugees and for them to show their stories in public. For World Refugee in 2019, for example, and in collaboration with the Valletta Film Festival, we organized UNHCR organized a get-together at St. George in Valletta, where right before certain film screenings, where we put tables out around chairs, and where certain members of the refugee community were invited to simply speak their story to passers-by and to people who were participating. So again, this is I guess it kind of most clearly illustrates the kind of efforts we want to present in terms of giving refugees the chance to speak about their story and opening it up to the public. So it's not about integration in that sense, because integration is a long-term process. But certainly we wanted to show with these events, these kinds of events and these kind of initiatives, that interaction takes place, which in a lot of ways is an early stage of integration. that's it for me. I think we can stop the presentation there. So of course, if you have any questions, then I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Theo. Actually, there is a question.
Great.
And we were asked whether so the presentation was very interesting, and we have a question which says, do you have some best practice from some local authorities? And that in Italy, the role of municipality is very important in management and integration. So it could be useful to have other good practices of integration from municipalities and local authorities.
Thank you for that. I think as a PI unit, we don't deal directly with local councils, whereas perhaps would be the closest equivalent, I guess. But this is something that certainly our colleagues in protection and even in durable solutions deal with. So perhaps Sarah would be best placed to answer the question directly.
Sarah. Sorry. So your question was good practices in terms of local authorities and then for municipalities. So in terms of authorities, we have a very good relationship with a number of stakeholders actually working in the government. So again, through many meetings, like bilateral meetings on employment, stakeholders on employment or education, we kind of managed to build a relationship of trust. Also, some areas, it's also beneficial for that authority to, in a way, extend their services to persons of concern. Example, employment. Before COVID, Malta, there was a huge boom in the labor market. So by training these people or extending the services, making sure they're aware of their rights, it was also in their best interest. But again, it was a relationship which was developed with service providers. And this can also be extended to even health in this year, for example, when it comes to COVID, or else social services. When it comes to best practices, what we do is usually, so after the bilateral meetings, when we manage to establish a relationship, the next step would be to introduce the refugee communities to that stakeholder. So I mentioned the outreach, the information session. If they have any material which we can maybe translate, we also do that. We support them, we make recommendations. So it's quite successful on some aspects. With municipalities, it's a bit different. So in Malta, we also struggle a bit to work with local councils. And I think if we can compare 2020 to 2017, there has been an improvement. So the improvement came about because, first of all, we're always advocating for an integration strategy. And this was introduced by the government, directive government department. And within the integration strategy, it gave local councils a role. So they had to appoint an integration officer within that particular local council to kind of try work with the migrant communities in that locality. Like I said, there are some localities where this relationship is very, very difficult, especially ones where there are large migrant populations living there. As Theo mentioned during his presentation, there are some struggles or issues with public perception. However, what we are trying to do is to listen to both ends of the story. So refugee communities, what their issues are and how the challenges they face to be integrated in their locality, and also those of the local councils. So the examples I will give might seem a bit trivial, but believe it or not, they're the ones that are most mentioned often. So for example, problems when it comes to collection of garbage. We translated the schedules per locality. And we're trying to take a softer approach. So, for example, myself right now, I'm trying to work on the most problematic, so to speak, areas of Malta, which are like Hamrun and Marsa, collaborating with the local council and seeing what they need. Sometimes the expectations are unrealistic, or else the problems are misdirected. That often happens, as migrant communities, as we very well know, are often blamed for the general problems of society at large. However, we're trying to make them feel that, like, listen, we are also here for you, and as much as possible, we will try our best to support you. Again, we are not doing this on our own, especially since our mandate covers refugees and asylum seekers, and this is not a problem specifically targeting refugee asylum seekers, but migrant populations. So we often work with other NGOs and also some other government departments, like, for example, who focus on community development. It's a work in progress, and as an office, I don't think we have reached the place where we want to have with local councils, but there has been an improvement. That's all I can say. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you both of you for your presentations. Thank you very much. And that was the question we had. And now I would like to say, unfortunately, Karina has had problems. Her internet connection broke down. So instead, the agency will be showing us the music video and speaking on her behalf. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. Thank you. Yes, sorry, I replaced Eleonora's intervention because unfortunately she had technical problems with the internet connection. And what I'm going to share with you is just a good practice that I think is interesting to show with you about a project conducted in Pisa. The name of the project is Crossing Border, Immigrants and Heart. The project aims was to try to integrate or involve the refugees hosted in the center of Pisa with the local citizens through the art and music. We organized 3 events with ethnic and local artists. They play together, they dance together, and at the end of the project, a video music was produced, and I would like to share with you these videos. There are the subtitles in Italian and in English. The videos is on YouTube. First of all, I share the link in chat in case that the broadcasting is not so good because of the line, the internet connection. But I hope you find the video in chat, and I try to show the video through web access as well. Please, Cesare, let me know if it is working. Now I share the screen. Okay. This is the video. The title is Where is My Peace? The singers came from different countries of Africa and also there are some producers from Pisa. So I hope that the sound will be good, and also the quality of the video. I try to show with you. I'm sorry, I think that there is a problem. I should share also. Try. Wait a second, sorry. I don't know if now okay, if you can see the presentation. This is the organization who prepared the project, and this is the Start the Change, the general project that finances small actions. This is the objectives that our project wanted to address. Is a space of reflection of on diversity. These are the first event held in January in the Red Cross Center. You can see there are actors playing with refugees. Here we are. This is the communication video. Is not properly the music. You can find the song on the YouTube, but I think that this video better explain the project. Here we have the second event in February, but unfortunately for the pandemic, we canceled it. Instead, in July, we were able to organize the second event. At the end of the event, of the project, we organized the music that you listen in the background. This is the creation of the video. Now you can enjoy the music.
Gang, gang, from again, não, ei, pasca por dentro. Não, quero ter, não, yo, pasca por dentro. Não, pode ter, não, yo, pasca por dentro. Não, quero ter, não, yo, pasca por dentro. Ei, mas não tem fácil, tem que estar parando a pensa na guerra. Mas não tem fácil, ei, tem que estar parando a pensa na ódio. Mas não tem fácil, ei, tem que estar parando a pensa na guerra. Para ter paz, não, tem que estar parando a pensa na arte. Eu vivo na fraternidade. Olha a minha parte. For peace to play, we gotta take it back from where we started. The best you can never want two decisions that's already go beyond the side. But you still got a chance to make a change for the better, cause we've been divided. Regardless of colors, your tribe, religion is better when you stay united. If you can't be peaceful with the world, if you can't have peaceful in your heart, you can't use your tissue to clean the scars. You know that issue was different there. It talks in you, reveal the truth inside yourself. In you within, it's true, reveal that we can't come together. It's hard to believe that was my peace. That is the question that we have to be. To the protest that we can jump in the street. The word I'm not for the peaceful to see. You gotta see it if you want to see it. Got it now, man. Got it now. Through la terre, pour la terre, les sont définis, information, disinformation, tous ces politiciens, vous vous faire perdre de moi, il faut dégager sur vos tests, la foule d'état souffrance, vous vous réguler de moi sans cesse, j'ai beaucoup à faire, c'est un territoire qui ignore tout les matchs pour les règles, les minutes de ma montre avance. Les secondes ne s'arrêtent pas, les ans, tous les ans c'est mou. Moi je voulais me mouver, on voulait prouver, j'ai voulu tant de fois les prix, de me suis fait attirer dans les plaies, et je vois qu'il y a dans ma sortie, alors où se trouve ma paix.
Okay, I hope that you enjoyed the video music. This wasn't the song. The song is updated on YouTube, the link that I share with you. This is the presentation of the project with the song as well, and you have seen also all the moments in which the music and the video was produced, very friendly moments, and I think this very well represent the soul of the project Crossing Borders. I hope that you'll check and share the video on YouTube, so these guys can raise their visibility, and from my side it's all. Julia, the floor is yours for introducing the next speaker.
Thank you very much, Daniela, and thank you for sharing the video with us. The next speaker is, and please correct me if I'm saying your name wrong, is Saleh Ahmed Mam. Saleh arrived in Malta as a migrant back in 2005. He enrolled at the University of Malta and obtained a BA in International Relations and Sociology. Saleh continued the studies and progressed to MA after earning the BA honors in International Relations. And following a successful research, he was awarded an MA degree in International Relations from the University of Malta. He worked with other researchers on the project, crossing the Mediterranean Sea by boat, mapping and documenting migratory journey and experiences. The research project was successfully completed and published by the University of Warwick. Saleh also joined the volunteers during the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in Malta in 2015 and the Valletta Summit in 2015 as well. He currently works as an integration officer with the Intercultural and Anti-Racism Unit within the Human Rights Directorate. I will give you the floor, Saleh.
Hello. Thank you, Julia. Thank you, Daniel. Yes, you did pronounce my name, except Mame. Saleh Ahmed Mame.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay. Yeah, as you said, I arrived in Malta as a migrant back in 2005. I had an opportunity to enroll at the University of Malta and then to be graduated, as you said. Now I'm working at the Human Rights Directorate on integration-related matters. So let me bring up my presentation here.
Wait a second, Saleh. I check if you have the privilege. Okay. Now you should be able to share the content,
Okay.
Okay, great.
You are seeing it. Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Let me,
Maybe you can enlarge the screen 5 to make the presentation great, outstanding.
To enlarge, I'm clicking on. Is it because it's not
okay?
showing properly?
Okay, don't worry. In case you can keep it also this way.
All right. So I'm speaking about integration-related service as snapshot of I Belong program. That I'm of course part of. This the integration program lies under Human Rights Directorate. As you can find on our website about the Human Rights Directorate. It includes LGBTIQ equality, gender equality, and of course intercultural and anti-racism unit. To get more information, please do visit our website. So, starting from Maltese population, according to Economic Survey October 2020, the population in Malta is 514,564, almost 100,000 foreign-born persons, of which 46,681 are third country nationals, and the rest are EU nationals. The top nationalities mainly arriving for employment in the last few years, 5,685 Philippines, 5,615 Indians, and then followed by Serbians, Libyans, Nepalese, Chinese, Albanian, and so on. Now, we work on integration strategy, which is migrant integration strategy and action plan Vision 2020. This project will end soon, and we are working on another project, obviously. So today I'm focusing on the I Belong program. The program aims to provide holistic approach to integration. The first step in this direction is through knowledge of the country's official language and the cultural awareness. To achieve this, we are offering courses which start from stage 1. In stage 1, we have 3 courses: accredited Maltese language certificate at MQF level 1, English at MQF level 1, and of course cultural orientation at MQF level 1 as well. Each course is 20 hours. In many cases, our clients are being exempted from attending English. If their English is good, we don't send them to English classes because, first of all, it is not mandatory. Second of all, it doesn't give sense to send someone who is fluent to attend the basic English class. So in that case, they focus mainly on cultural orientation and Maltese, 40 hours in total. And then if they finish stage 1, they will be given pre-integration certificate and they can apply for stage 2, which includes cultural orientation at MQF level 2 and the Maltese for integration at MQF level 2. Now, stage 2 is longer. As you can see, stage 2 is longer than stage 1. I don't know if I'm seeing the number. In total 170 hours, because the cultural orientation in stage 2 is up to 120 hours. At least they have to attend 100 hours, and the Maltese 50 hours. Then if they finish stage 2, they can also apply for a long-term residence permit, because the certificate of stage 2 is one of the requirements. However, the status of the client does make difference, because to apply for long-term residence permit, they should be either refugee, subsidiary protection holders, third country nationals. Others cannot apply for long-term residence permit. However, they do use this program to renew their document. So, the implementation of I Belong program. The first step is applying for the program. They can apply either online or by coming to our office or by sending application by letter. Then we put their application on our database, their file number generated, and then we send them file number with the acknowledgement of application. And then, of course, they have to wait for some time. Then one-to-one integration request meeting. We invite them either through email or by phoning them. And then from there we see their need, individual need. Then we have obviously a personal integration plan, and we also see their eligibility, because the project is co-funded by AMIF, which is the Asylum Integration and the Migrant Integration Fund, which is funded by the EU, and of course Maltese government fund. So some of the applicants are not eligible for this fund, for AMIF fund. However, since the project is also funded by Maltese government, as long as they have a valid residence permit in Malta, they can apply for this program. Then, following successful completion of stage 1, they can apply for stage 2. During integration request meeting, they tell us their personal story and the future plan. If they have any qualification related to the courses. For example, if they have accredited Maltese certificate of stage 1 or of stage 2, they don't need to apply, they don't need to attend Maltese with us. They can only focus on English and the cultural orientation. Because the cultural orientation, which is accepted by Identity Malta, is given by this directorate. Of course, we have to fill a detailed form to get more information about their need. starting personal integration plan in case they have personal issues or social issues or employment, housing, whatever problem they have. If we cannot help them, we refer them to the right organization. So as you can see from our statistics, when we started in 2008, the application was over 400 between July to December 2018, then 2,000, more than 2,000 in 2019. And this year, until October, we received 845 applications. The number is growing. And of course, we have people who have attended and successfully graduated from stage 1. For example, 400 people graduated in stage 1. And this does not include the number of graduates who have already completed the course, and we send them details to MCAST already. And it does not also include stage 2 graduates. So if we add those numbers on this, the number of graduation would increase dramatically. As you can see the statistics, the main applicants are third country nationals, and then followed by specific residence authorization holders, which is a new form of residence permit in Malta, which is renewed every 2 years, and subsidiary protection, then failed asylum seeker, and so on. When it comes to nationalities, the majorities are Serbians, 317 application. I'm talking till October. The number is increasing, as I said. Filipino, 239, followed by Ivory Coast, 209, Libyans, 200, Nigerians, and so on and so forth. So when we started the project, the pressure was quite low, but now it's building up, and we are receiving a lot of applications, and we have to process as quickly as possible. That's it. If you have any question related to the iBlog program, I try to answer, and I'm ready from my short presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Saleh.
Thank you too.
Thank you for your presentation. And I would just like to ask whether Bashir or someone from the Somali community is present. I know that he was trying to join the conference, but I'm not sure whether he managed. Okay, I don't think so then. Yeah.
Well, I have a question for Saleh or for other panelists. Apart from the survey and the official tool to collect the feelings and the perception of the citizens about the immigrants, how is, in your opinion, just sort of my curiosity, the general feelings of Maltese citizens towards the refugees or immigrants? I don't know if Saleh or someone else that live in the island want to reply.
Hi, Daniel. Are you hearing me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
That from my end, the general feeling, we only focus on this program, and of course we have other pillars as well, but we don't collect data related to the population feeling when it comes to migrants. I think that should be answered by someone who have better knowledge of that.
Hi. So Theo had to leave because he has another meeting. Per se, we do not collect data in the sense that it's not a very structured approach. We try to observe trends on public perception. And last year, as Theo explained, we had conducted a research company to carry out quantitative and a qualitative survey. From our end, we noticed that Malta, when there are boat arrivals, the perception of Maltese becomes more negative towards refugees. So since 2018, we have been receiving more boat arrivals, and even towards the beginning of this year, because of COVID, there were a few standoffs between NGO ships. So public perception became quite negative, especially in certain localities which have a large migrant population residing there. I don't know if you have any other questions or if I answered your question. Sorry.
Yeah, there's Vlad Melnik has a question. I don't know if he's going to write it in the chat, or maybe I can give him the floor. Wait a second. Can I speak? Okay, you want to intervene? Of course. Just give. Vlad, I think you can speak now.
Yeah, hello, good morning. So I'm Vlad Melnik and I'm from the People for Change Foundation Malta. So I would like to ask a question to Sarah, as she was speaking about the programs for integration that you are developing. So I was just curious because I know that the UNHCR adopts a AGD approach, which means age, gender, and diversity. So I wanted to know which kind of programs do you adopt for children? So for the children-friendly integration process, do you have specific programs for children, for women, and for other minorities, or you try to integrate them in the general programs for all the community of migrants, of refugees?
So it depends what you mean by programs. We don't have any programs actually. So as an organization, as I mentioned, we do not actually offer direct services. We either do it to our implementing partners, which are GRS or Auditus, but we mostly focus on support and strengthening services which are already available. What we do provide is mostly information, networking, advocacy with stakeholders. However, when it comes to our work with stakeholders, as much as possible, we try and mainstream services. So for stakeholders to include refugee communities in the current services which are in place. Then when it comes to, for example, some activities we carry out, if it is, again, we do not have any programs per se. For example, a public information campaign, we make sure we try our best, obviously, to see that different communities are being represented. So which are stories focusing on refugee communities in general, we try our best and include everyone as in all different types of communities. Also to make sure that there are women involved, for example, or students. Like Malta is very small, so sometimes it's difficult, but in terms of programs, I cannot really answer your question because we do not have any specific programs.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if are there any other questions from the attendees. If you want, we have still a couple of minutes. From the F4Eus partners, I don't know if someone just even some curiosity or I don't know. If you want you can write in the chat. Or otherwise, I don't see any other questions. Okay, well, Julia, do you want make the closures, and then I can integrate your conclusion?
Yes, I would just like to thank all the speakers and attendees and all those who participated and attended this conference. And I would like to say thank you, and especially thank you to all the people who contributed to this and to the speakers. Thank you, Daniele. If you have any concluding remarks.
Thank you very much for your great job. Thank you very much indeed for all the participants and all the speakers. I think that the arguments debated were really, really interesting and well presented, and various as well. I already said the project A4Eus continues. I will happy to see you also in the other meeting that we'll organize, of course, focusing on other issues always related to the immigration and refugees issues, if we can say that. Just let me introduce also the afternoon sessions reserved to the A4Eus partners, because we'll talk about the technical aspect of the coordination and the organization of the further activities. So for all the A4Eus partners that are now as attendees, the rendezvous is set for 2:30 today, and we'll discuss about the ongoing survey and about the international agreement and the timetable of the activities. So it's very important for us to have the chance to discuss all together about this aspect. So thank you again to everyone, and for the A4Eus partners, see you in less than 3 hours. Thank you very much again to everybody. Bye-bye. Thank you.